know, but you've been working hard.
All right. So,
All right.
welcome.
Well, thank you. Well, I don't know how you follow that, but we're going to try. I just want to pull back for a second. What you heard in the video, what you know, is the underbelly of inclusion, right? It's the underbelly of a strong community. So I've been here. I took a picture out of the hotel and showed people the ocean, and nobody ever pays attention to my likes or anything. I had 156 likes on that one picture. It's beautiful, it's amazing, and I'm like, yes, and it's oceans and it's breezes, and I started to realize, like, you know, the older I've gotten, I understand the song of the sea, you know, and I can, but the reality is that as much as I want to, like, run out and get sucked in by the undertow, if I have a wheelchair, I can't get to the beach. Okay? So if I want to go walking through the forest, it's not really wheelchair accessible. And a lot of people don't consider, like, oh, Keith, it's okay, you'll be fine. But if you live in a community that's about the outdoors and the nature, then my ability or my access is key to me being a part of that community. You know, when you talk about homelessness, just to tie into their piece, the reason I moved out west was I got priced out of Boston. So then we were talking about this a little earlier. The neighborhood I lived in was the south end of Boston. Diverse, we had a little bit of some of everybody. You know, generations of families have been there, and then people discovered the brownstones. Oh, and they bought I'll just tell you a real quick story about that. A friend of mine's mother had a beautiful house, 5 stories. She owned it outright. And just at the beginning of what we call gentrification, they offered her $400,000, $500,000. They had never had a whole bunch of money. So when they heard $400,000, yes, I said, don't you sell that house for less than $1 million. They couldn't conceptualize. I said, don't do it. I said, because what they're going to do, they're going to come in, buy your 5-story building, cut each floor into a different unit, and turn it around and sell it for twice what they paid you for the entire house. A year and a half later, they had moved, they sold the house. I rolled down, it was on Worcester Street, I rolled down. They were selling the first floor that we used to call the dungeon. Okay, this is where we learned how to do graffiti and rap and all the inappropriate teenage stuff. And we were laughing. It's like, they bought the dungeon. It was on the market for $1.3 million. The house, each floor in that house sold for more than $1.5 million. The family only got $400,000. So it's not just that, you know, can you get into the house? It's, are you able to keep your house? You know, and so when I was in Boston, after college, last century, I moved, you know, I had my son and moved back into Boston, but I couldn't get an apartment. I worked 40 hours, I had a full-time job, salary, 40 hours a week. My paycheck working at the Independent Living Center every 2 weeks was $636. The average rent in Boston at the time was about $2,400. So I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna stay in the neighborhood. I'm gonna live right around my mama because I'm a mama's boy. So I went around the corner and I looked at a studio apartment. It literally was probably as big as this corner. And they wanted $1,900 a month. That's not first, last, and security. So to get into the house would have been $6,000 off the top. This was 95. Now, in the neighborhood, so it took me from 97 to 2001 to find an affordable apartment. I found it out in Somerville, which is about 20 minutes from my mother's house. And they got in and I was just like, please, like I was begging. I was like, I just want to get out of my mama's house, just so my mama could have her own house back, right? And so that I could do all of my raunchy stuff without my mama looking over my shoulder. What are you doing? And what they don't talk about is what you need to get into a house. Like, I have student loans, and if student loans are not right, they affect your credit. And so when you apply for housing, what's the first thing they do? Check your credit. You know, as a person of color, I'm already dealing with that on the door, because it's not like I can walk in and not be seen as a person of color. And I'm rolling in with a wheelchair, so damn, I got disability and color and I got bad credit. And so it was just my stroke of luck that I was able to get that apartment. But in my previous job, I was a skills specialist, and the largest issue for the people that I was serving, which were people with disabilities, was affordable, accessible housing. So how can if I can't get it for myself, how am I going to do this as a job? And so we had, in Massachusetts, they still have it, was a housing registry. So the apartment came up, but the problem was for every wheelchair accessible senior citizen home or apartment that was available, there was like 10,000 people looking for it. And unless you knew somebody on the inside, and I would get calls, yo, they about to move out, so don't tell nobody, I'll just let you know. So you had to be on the inside in order to do this. So one of the large crises was not so much that people didn't want housing, they couldn't afford it. And you get into the politics of it. We don't want rent control. You're preventing us from making money on our property. But what they had failed to realize is that when you start excluding the people from certain parts of housing, you change how the community looks. You change how the community operates. You change what made the South End now is no longer the South End. We went from like families and multi-generational stuff to now, if I see a dog in a stroller one more time, I'm gonna fight somebody. Y'all might see me on the news, just say he's really nice. But it boiled down to the same thing that a lot of things you guys are talking about here, and in a broader context is, what is the fabric of community? If you can't have the people in your community that make it fun to have a cookout, go camping, or go fishing, because the people who would do that have been priced out, right? So is it still a community? So how do you hold, so here in Tillamook County, how do you hold what makes it special in place if the very fabric of the community is being priced out of the community? So that has been the challenge, and that's if you got a job. Because everybody in that video they were talking about were people who were employed. Does anybody know the employment rate for people with disabilities? The unemployment rate, if you use a standard metric, hovers around 75 to 95%. That's just unemployment. If you add a race and ethnicity or particular gender to it, it jumps up to 98 to 100%. So me being employed, doing this, I'm 1 out of 100 having a job. So if you're looking at the kids in the economy, I said it. Hey. I did. I was practicing all night.
Nicely done.
Thank you. But it's like, so the kids are looking like, so what am I going to do, right? So this is a fishing town, tourists, nature. You're not Portland, you're on the other side, you're on the coast, you have all these beautiful things. But as a student with a disability, what is my future? Because in rural areas, the access to services, we already know. So in Massachusetts or in other parts of the country, the largest population of people with disabilities are really close to the center or to the cities, because typically that's where the majority of services are, hospital access. If you have a child that's medically complex, you need to be in those places. If you live out here and your child is medically complex, now it's an issue of, okay, do we always have to go down to Portland? Do we always have to get to Eugene? Do we always have to do this? How come we can't have it here? And then you'll hear this. well, didn't nobody tell you to move out there, and so you need to, well, you can kiss my behind. I can live where I want to live,
There you go.
right? Because and so that's where the issue of the role of government comes in, and people get all weird, you know. But the bigger picture is that it's not just about access. It's about how do you hold a community together? How do you make sure that your kids doesn't look at you and say, there's no future for me here? Because if I want to stay, as much as I love the surrounding area, I love the trails, but I can't afford to stay. You know, I can't, and even if I could afford to stay, I use a scooter sometimes. And if I can't get down the street, because there's a half a sidewalk here, and then the rest of the sidewalk is on the other side of the street. I've seen that. Right? I pay attention.
Busted.
Right, busted. So it's those kind of things. And so when I came here, like I've been fortunate to travel some of the most random places in America. And people are beautiful. Like, you guys are awesome. But the challenge is not insurmountable. It's just a matter of people wanting to do the hard, unflattering work. Because people will say, well, if we add access, those people will want to come. Well, who the hell are those people? Like, Julie and I were talking, I was like, capitalists seem to be some of the dumbest people on the planet. Because wouldn't you want to have a broader consumer base? Because if you make it accessible for their child, the child is bringing a mother and a father, an aunt, an uncle, and now you have 5 people that can be potential customers because you made it accessible for one. Versus, oh, Keith, we've never had people in wheelchairs come to my hospital. Oh, of course not. You got 16 steps. Have you ever seen the wheelchair roll up steps? I mean, I've seen some roll down steps on accident, but hey. So it's how do you have the discussion? What is the Chamber of Commerce doing as a chamber? You know, what is the Tourism Board doing? What could you do? I mean, if you have wheelchair accessible beaches,
Yes.
right?
We're going.
There you go.
That's where we're headed.
So now, like,
We're going today.
I'll just tell you that the last economic data indicated that the disability community, in terms of discretionary, like, even though we dead broke, had about $1.5 trillion worth of economic buying power. But if we can't get to your neighborhood, we can't spend our money in your shops, right? We can't drink wonderful coffee, eat scones, take sunset pictures, go have beers and hard cider, because we can't get in. And so it's not, so, and it boils down to, then people quietly start assuming, am I not worthy of coming to your place? Because you don't need to be overt with, no, you can't come. Like, it's real subtle. Like, I've been to places, and I'm fortunate enough that I have the ability to get up out the wheelchair, walk up steps, and do things like that. But even when I show up, people go, oh, I'm so glad you got out of the house today.
Oh,
Like, what the hell is wrong with you? What am I supposed to do, sit in the house all day? Oh, you're so special. You're such an inspiration. Like, I don't want to be an inspiration. I just want a rum and coke. That's all. Right? Like, you don't want to have to, like, you really don't want to have to get up and really think about what it's going to take to get into a place. One of the things that for people who are attached to people with disabilities or special needs is that we have to problem solve the moment we wake up. So if I want to go somewhere, I instantly have to think about, okay, am I taking a wheelchair? Am I not taking a wheelchair? Now, if I don't take the wheelchair, I can walk about 20 minutes before it becomes like a problem. If I do take the wheelchair, there's no guarantee. So it's all of this, and this is all silent. And you'll never know it because nobody's going to tell you. Like, so if your child has a hidden disability, then you go to a place and they may have an outburst quote. Then people, oh, what's wrong with your child? Then people start acting differently. So, what holds the community together? Typically, it's because everybody, you all are close enough that you know each other. I think I've met like 20 people that had like 16 jobs, right? It was like I'm a firefighter, school board member, paratrooper, chef, and a whaler, right? Like that. And that's on Tuesday, right? Like so everybody does these things, right? But the beauty of it is that you guys know each other, and so that you can lean in on each other and pick up the slack where it may need to be picked up. The solutions about a housing crisis is not that people can't afford it. It's why is a house on Tuesday that rented for $1,300 on Wednesday now renting for $2,600? What is the driving force behind that? Now, in a free market capitalist society, people will say, well, I have the right to charge what I want to charge. You do. But there's a cost to that. Because if you're charging $2,600, that means the people who would be here to quote service the people who are parachuting in for their vacation home. So what happens if none of you are here and the vacation people come and there's a fire, what happens? Oh, your house burned down. Well, where was the fire people? You priced them out. Somebody has an emergency. There's no EMT. You priced them out. My kids wants to go to school, but the teachers aren't there. Price them out. That is not just a Tillamook County issue. That is a national issue. And if you add disability to it, it becomes a crisis level event. Because if you're elderly and you own your home, one of the things that we have fought for with the disability is, quote, age in place. So like, as opposed to you having to like give up your house that you've had for 30 years, you were able to modify the home, get in-home care and services and support that happen. But then people start looking at you like, I don't want my taxes to go into you being able to stay in your home. Well, if you break your ankle, don't come knocking on my door because I'm not carrying your behind up your steps. Fair is fair. And so the challenge has become how do we get people to think beyond just the immediate? Get thinking beyond this season. Get thinking beyond themselves. Because the word community means everybody. And because I have a disability, shouldn't exclude me from the word community. If I show up, people go, oh, it's so awesome, it's so good. But I can't get out my house, right? We drove by the land that you bought for Sammy's place. I started giggling because I watch a lot of HGTV, so I was like, ooh, we can do this and landscaping and trees, and I got all excited because people with disabilities are always the last ones to be included in anything. Whenever there's, like you having a county referendum on voting, right? So you were voting. Are your polling places accessible?
We have vote by mail.
Vote by mail, right?
Yeah.
And that, can y'all please tell the rest of the country? I'm pleased, because I'll just tell you, so I went to vote. And it's the cute old lady who's been a voting person for 1,000 years. And you show up and she goes, oh, that's so nice, you want to vote. The hell is, okay. So and then I go to vote and she's like, and they look at me and they go, how are you going to fill out the ballot? Well, I'm going to fill it out. Oh, no, literally, she took the pen and started writing in my vote without me telling her who I was voting for. Because the assumption was that the person with a disability, it was just nice enough for me to be there. But I had no idea what I was doing. And so and I'm a grown man. So if you're a kid and this is how people are treating you, what does that say to you? So when I stand back and I look at the issues facing what we're facing, none of them are insurmountable. People tend to be their own worst enemies because they don't see what the future is. So those kids that were sitting in the stands yesterday, they are the future of Tillamook County. But if they feel like we don't have nowhere to go, You know, we see moms struggling, we see dads struggling, you know, and even though we, you know, as parents, we try to, you know, shelter our kids, and you don't worry about that, I worry about it. But then it, you know, it wears on us, so maybe we drink a little more, maybe we sleep a little less, maybe we're a little more agitated, maybe we have less time to do family stuff because we're spending 60 and 70, 80 hours working just to get the money, just to keep what we got, as opposed to losing what we got.